The rolling of suitcases echoed against the polished wooden floor, blending with the hurried breaths of passengers crowding into first class. This should have been a quiet flight, but within minutes, the luxurious cabin would transform into an invisible battlefield. Seat 2A, a wide leather chair gleaming under the golden light on its armrest, like the halo of privilege, was no longer just a seat. It was a fragile dividing line between power and contempt. In that seat sat Marcus Reed, a black man in his early 40s, his sharp features calm and composed, as though carved from marble. His hand moved slowly across his tablet, the blue glow reflecting against thin, framed glasses. For Marcus, the outside world was nothing more than a blurred backdrop, distant and irrelevant. He was absorbed in his own stillness. That stillness shattered when a woman stepped in. Clara Whitmore, 47, tall. Her blonde hair pulled into a perfect cone bun. On her wrist glittered a diamond-studded watch, its ticking like the beat of an invisible command. Her high heels tapped against the carpet, ringing like the opening notes of a confrontation no one saw coming. For Clara, every flight carried the same unspoken rule. Seat 2A belonged to her. No ticket, no procedure needed, only the commanding weight of her gaze. And the enforcer of that command today was Lauren Hayes, 31, a flight attendant whose weary smile felt like a mask. Lauren approached Marcus, leaning slightly. Her voice was gentle, but beneath that gentleness hid a sharp edge. "Sir, this seat has been reserved for another Platinum VIP member. I'm afraid you'll have to move." The air froze. A few passengers lifted their heads, fingers pausing on phone screens. At first, some thought this was a small mistake, but Clara's icy glare and Lauren's strained smile made it clear this was no simple error. Marcus looked up, not with anger, not with argument, but with the stillness of midnight waters. He drew a sleek platinum card from his wallet and held it up. His voice was steady and firm. "This is the seat on my ticket. I am also a platinum member." Lauren glanced at the card, her smile tightening further, then turned back to Clara. One silent glance, but in that fleeting moment, everyone in the cabin understood. A quiet pact had just been sealed. Clara tilted her head, her dark red lips curling into a blade, sharp smile. "I always sit in that seat. It belongs to me." Her words iced the air like an unseen slap. Passengers whispered, a few phones lifted higher, lenses discreetly pointed toward row 2. The tension pulled tighter. Marcus held out his ticket again. The text was clear. 2A. His voice dropped, deep and resonant like a drum beat. "This is my seat. I will sit here." In that instant, the cabin was no longer about a disputed seat. It had become an arena between arrogance and resolve, between inherited privilege and unshakable dignity. Lauren cleared her throat, clinging to a professionalism already cracking. Her voice trembled despite her effort. "This seat is usually prioritized for our most loyal platinum passengers. Mrs. Whitmore has flown with Skylux for many years." The word loyal fell heavy, but everyone knew what it really meant. Not loyalty, but belonging. And by their measure, Marcus did not belong. Clara stepped forward, her designer bag brushing her side, her smile stretching in triumph. I've flown this route for years. Seat 2A is practically mine. Silence spread, broken only by the ticking of the diamond watch, each beat a symbol of entitlement. Marcus inhaled, adjusted his tie, his eyes never leaving Lauren. His words rang out sharp as steel. This seat is printed with my name. I will not move. For a moment, time cracked open, all eyes fixed on three faces. Clara, proud and imperious, Lauren, anxious and faltering, and Marcus, calm and immovable as stone. Clara let out a mocking laugh, deliberately loud enough to fill the cabin. Arguing over a seat in first class, how ridiculous! I've never seen anything so laughable. The whispers no longer hid themselves. She's stealing his seat. His ticket clearly says 2A. This is blatant discrimination. Lauren tried to reclaim control. Sir, I must insist once more. But Marcus cut her off. Short, cold. There is no need to insist. I will not move. No shouting, no anger. It was his unshakable composure that made the air grow heavier. Three faces stood in stark contrast: blind pride, growing fear, and unbreakable resolve, all now caught in the lenses of countless cameras. What Clara and Lauren did not yet know was that the man they dismissed as unworthy was not just another passenger. He was the owner of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. And in just moments, this first-class seat would ignite into a firestorm, altering the fate of an entire airline. The air in first class grew thick, heavy like the sky before a storm. Every eye was now fixed on row 2. No one saw this as a minor procedural clash anymore. This was a theater of power unfolding in plain sight. Lauren, the young flight attendant, drew in a shaky breath. Her fingers gripped the serving tray so tightly they turned white. In her ears, the pounding of her own heartbeat drowned out even the rumble of the engines starting up. She knew every gesture, every word was being captured by dozens of phones. She also knew that with a single tap, the video could escape this cabin and spread across the world. But behind her was Clara's stare, not a plea, but a command, sharp and unyielding, an order that forced Lauren to act. Marcus remained still. His hands rested neatly on the armrests, his composure almost unnerving. Not a bead of sweat, not a furrowed brow. Only his eyes, sharp as blades, sweeping over each person who tried to diminish him. Clara's lips curled upward as she flicked her wrist, the diamonds on her watch catching the cabin lights, flashing like a signal of victory. The ticking seemed to pound against everyone's chest. "How shameful," she said coldly, her voice loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. "It's just a seat, yet he cannot yield. What kind of man is so stubborn?" Her mocking laughter rang out, making several passengers wince. A wave of murmurs spread. He has the ticket. She's the one in the wrong. This is blatant discrimination. Let's see how far this goes. Marcus did not answer her provocation. He slowly held out his ticket once more in front of Lauren. The words were clear. 2A. His voice was low, each syllable heavy as a hammer, striking steel. Tickets do not lie. I will sit where I belong. Lauren swallowed hard. In her mind echoed Clara's promise. Don't worry, I'll make sure you're covered. Alongside it came flashes of the cash Clara had so often slipped into her hand after flights. Which loyalty was real? To the airline, to the rules, or to the wealthy passenger who wielded power like currency? She turned sharply, pulling the cabin curtain and walking quickly towards the back. Every camera followed her retreating figure, like red eyes glowing in the dark. Moments later, Stephen Clark, the cabin supervisor, emerged. At 49, broad, shouldered with neatly cropped salt and pepper hair, his steps carried the weight of judgment. From the very first glance, Stephen had chosen his side. His eyes swept over Marcus, not as a paying customer, but as a problem to be removed. "Sir," his voice boomed deliberately so the entire cabin could hear, "you need to vacate this seat immediately. It belongs to one of our long-standing VIP clients." The atmosphere wavered. Some passengers held their breath. Phones tilted higher to capture every second. Marcus slowly closed his tablet and placed it carefully into the leather bag on his lap. He lifted his gaze, locking eyes with Stephen. His voice was deep, resonant, unwavering. "Reason?" Stephen pointed toward Clara. "This seat is Mrs. Whitmore's." Each word landed like the slam of a cabin door. Marcus leaned back slightly, though his gaze did not waver. His words came slow, deliberate. "This ticket says 2A. I presented my membership card. I am not going anywhere." In that instant, the confidence on Stephen's face cracked. A tiny fissure opened in his mask of authority. He covered it quickly with a cough, but the cameras had already caught it. Clara refused to let the moment falter. She raised her voice, performing for the entire cabin. "Unbelievable! We are here to fly, not to argue with someone who doesn't know his place. I have never been treated so poorly." Sighs echoed, but this time they were not directed at Marcus. Cold, sharp eyes from fellow passengers cut straight toward Clara. Marcus lowered his voice, deeper, firmer. "You can repeat your demands as many times as you wish. My answer will not change. I will remain." The very air seemed to stop. This was no longer about a seat. It had become a collision between the airline's authority and a man's dignity. Yet no one, not Stephen, not Clara, realized the truth. The man they dismissed as an outsider was no ordinary passenger. He was Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies, a multi-billion-dollar empire, and the very lifeline Skylux Airways was clinging to in a desperate $4.2 billion contract. And with his unshakable silence, he had just ignited the storm that would engulf the entire airline. First class was wrapped in a silence so dense it felt ready to shatter. Not the pleasant hush of a luxury flight, but the silence that comes before an explosion. The kind that makes every passenger strain their ears, every tick of a watch pound against their chest. Lauren stood pressed against the wall, her serving tray trembling so badly the glass on it clinked softly. She knew every phone camera was aimed at her. She knew one mistake, and she would no longer be a flight attendant, but the target of a storm spreading across social media. Behind her, Clara's gloved hand brushed against her, a touch as light as air, yet heavy as a command. Lauren turned and saw the glint between Clara's fingers. Money. Folded neatly, passed quickly, like a secret dance. Clara leaned in, whispering just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Thank you for handling it properly." Lauren froze. In her ears, blood rushed like thunder. Her fingers shook as she accepted the cash and slipped it into the pocket of her Navy uniform. Only seconds passed, but in first class, those seconds stretched like a slow-motion play. From the right, hand row came a stifled laugh. She just took the money. Then whispers, "My God, it's happening for real." Phones tilted higher, lenses zooming in on Clara's hand, retreating on Lauren's trembling one still hovering near her pocket. Marcus saw it all, but he said nothing. His eyes, calm as midnight waters, reflected the sight of money disappearing into a pocket. In his chest was not rage, but a familiar ache, the injustice disguised in civility, the same feeling that had haunted him since childhood. He drew a deep breath, held on to composure, held on to dignity. Stephen Clark, the cabin supervisor, swelled with authority at the scene. He stepped forward, his voice booming like a verdict. "Sir, if you continue to resist, we will be forced to call security. This is your final chance." The cabin held its breath. Phones buzzed with alerts, live streams, spreading like wildfire. Everyone knew this was no longer about a seat. This was a raw display of favoritism and prejudice. Marcus slowly opened his eyes, lifting his head. His voice was low, steady. "You have seen the ticket. You have seen the card. I am not leaving." His words cut through the air like a blade, slicing open the flimsy cover of policy Stephen tried to hide behind. A man in row 3 shouted, "He's right! This is blatant discrimination!" Voices of support rippled out, followed by another wave of flashing cameras. Clara rolled her eyes, forcing a bitter laugh to mask her unraveling control. Unbelievable. We can't fly because of one stubborn man. What a waste of time. But this time, no one laughed with her. Cold stares bore into Clara and into Stephen. Lauren pressed her hand against her pocket, where the cash burned like fire. She knew she had just been caught in front of dozens of cameras. Sweat beaded on her temples. Every breath dragged the weight of guilt deeper. Yet the invisible chain of money, of loyalty to a generous customer, bound her in silence. Stephen took another step, his shadow falling over Marcus. "If you refuse, we'll call the captain, and then things won't be so pleasant." Marcus did not move. He rested one hand lightly on his folded tablet, his voice firm, each word striking like steel on steel. "Do what you must. I am not moving." First class held its breath. The only sounds were the diamonds on Clara's watch, tapping against the armrest, Lauren's ragged breathing, and the tiny clicks of fingers pressing record to capture history. No one knew it yet, but in just a few minutes, a storm would erupt outside these walls. And its eye was forming right there in seat 2A. The curtain quivered softly. From the front of the cabin came the sound of heavy footsteps, echoing through the suffocating air. Each step struck like a drumbeat, heralding the storm about to break. Then he appeared. Captain Richard Donovan, 50. 4 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, his navy uniform lined with golden stripes pressed crisp as steel, His sun-weathered face bore the stern grooves of decades in the skies. On any other flight, that face would have been a source of reassurance, but today it carried only dread. Beside him stood Stephen Clark and Lauren Hayes. They formed a line, a wall of authority blocking the path to seat 2A. Donovan halted, his voice booming with finality. "Sir, the crew has the authority to reassign seats when necessary. I am ordering you to vacate this seat immediately." A wave of murmurs surged through the cabin. Phones rose like weapons, their red recording lights blinking across first class like warning beacons. Marcus lifted his gaze, his eyes calm but bottomless. He looked straight at Donovan, unwavering, unafraid. His voice cut through the tension, slow and deliberate. "My ticket clearly says, Seat 2A. I am a platinum member. I have broken no rule. Therefore, I am not moving." Silence crashed down, heavy as lead. Lauren held her breath. Stephen clenched his jaw until the muscles bulged. Clara smiled triumphantly, as if the captain were the final blade to finish this play. Donovan gripped his cap tightly, veins rising on his hand. He leaned in, his tone lower, colder. "This is your final warning. If you refuse, I will call security. They will remove you from this plane." A gasp escaped from the back rows. A passenger whispered loud enough to be heard, "But he has the ticket. Why are they doing this?" Marcus sat tall, hands resting neatly on his thighs, chin lifted. He did not shout. He did not plead. He spoke only once, short, sharp, like nails hammered into wood. "I am not leaving, not." The air shattered. A few passengers cried out, "This is unfair. We're recording everything." Clara swirled her champagne, the golden liquid shimmering as she took a slow sip. Her voice was detached, cold, the tone of an audience watching a play. "Ridiculous. How much longer until we take off?" Donovan gave a subtle nod. Stephen understood. He yanked the curtain aside, signaling. Heavy footsteps thundered in. Two men emerged. Officer Daniel Perez, 38, eyes sharp, black gloves fitted tight. Beside him, Officer Mark Collins, 35, moved like a wall of muscle. The snap of a glove echoed, chilling as the imagined click of handcuffs. The cabin shuddered. All eyes tracked the advancing uniforms. Perez loomed over seat 2A, his voice low and commanding. "Sir, we've been called to escort you off this flight. Please stand." Marcus turned, meeting his stare. No fear, only the calm that unsettled those facing him. His voice was steady, resonant. "For what reason? What law have I broken?" Collins glanced quickly at Stephen, then looked away from Marcus's gaze. Perez kept his tone flat. "You are charged with failing to comply with crew instructions." Marcus's lips curved into a thin smile, not of defiance, but of a man too familiar with injustice. His words rang sharp. "Failure to follow an unjust order is not a crime." The line pierced the cabin like lightning. A voice burst out from row 3. "He's right. This is blatant discrimination." Clara rolled her eyes, releasing a shrill laugh. "Please take him away already. We have a flight to catch." Lauren pressed her hand against her pocket, where the bribe still burned. She knew the entire cabin had seen it, knew every frame was multiplying across social media. Marcus folded his tablet, slid it into his leather case, and rose. The movement was deliberate, steady, like a ritual. His shoulders squared, chin held high. The officers flanked him, escorting him as if he were a criminal. Yet his steps landed firm, unbroken. Each strike of his shoes echoed like a drumbeat in the passengers' chests. Thud, thud, thud. To their eyes, this was no man being dragged away. It was a man walking out with his dignity intact, leaving behind a cabin stunned into silence. Clara settled into seat 2A, lifting her champagne glass as if reclaiming a throne. But she had no idea that peace would last only a few breaths. Because the moment the cabin door closed behind Marcus, the real storm had begun. The cabin door closed behind Marcus. Light from the terminal spilled across his face, not the light of humiliation, but of truth awakened. He quietly pulled out his phone. His fingers moved swiftly, typing a message to his COO. They picked the wrong man. To understand the weight of those 4 words, one must go back more than 30 years to a black teenager in Detroit who swore the world would one day see his dignity. Marcus Reed was 16 then. His family's worn-down apartment in a working-class district was always heavy with the smell of coal smoke and the wail of train whistles. His father, Samuel Reed, a steel worker with calloused hands, came home every night to the hiss of molten metal still echoing in his ears. His mother, Lorraine, worked night shifts cleaning offices, her eyes weary, but still glowing when they looked at her son. Then came a winter night. The phone shrilled through the small apartment. Lorraine collapsed to the floor, her trembling hands clutching the faded carpet. The news was brutal. Samuel had been murdered in a robbery on his way home from the plant. Marcus stood frozen beside his mother, his heart shattering. He stared into the abyss of injustice, a place where a man's life could be taken, leaving behind only tears and a pair of worn, calloused hands gone cold. At the cemetery's frozen ground, Marcus gripped his mother's trembling hand and made a silent vow. I will build something so this world can never look down on us again. I will stand tall, no matter how much they try to make me kneel. Rising from pain, Marcus found solace in what most had discarded, an old computer collecting dust in the basement of a local church. Its screen was dim, its keyboard sticky, but to him it was a gateway to an entirely new universe. While his peers spent their nights on video games, Marcus unscrewed every bolt, devoured every line of code from library books. He learned to find order in chaos, to see patterns in tangled data. Night after night, light spilled from the window of the tiny apartment like the steady glow of determination. Lorraine often passed by, watching her son hunched over, eyes red from sleepless nights. She never stopped him. She knew that fire was the only legacy Samuel had left. Resilience, unbroken. At 18, Marcus wrote his first programs, predicting basketball scores, analyzing sales models for small shops. No one believed him. A black kid with an unfamiliar name could not, in their eyes, be a tech innovator. Investors shook their heads, their gaze stopping at his skin before reaching his ideas. Dozens of rejections only brought back his father's words. You must stand tall, even when the world wants you bowed. Marcus pressed on. By day, he hauled boxes, waited tables, fixed computers. By night, he returned to the green glow of a screen, fingers pounding code. Then one day, in that cramped room, with a desk propped up by crates, Reed Technologies was born. His mission was never just money. It was to build systems that forced companies to treat customers fairly, regardless of name, skin, or accent. His technology spread quietly, but relentlessly. Banks, governments, Fortune 500 companies came knocking. Marcus hadn't just built a company. He had built a mirror, one that exposed bias and forced society to confront it. 20 years later, Reed Technologies had become a $3 billion empire. And in cruel irony, Skylux Airways, the very airline that had just forced Marcus from seat 2A, was locked in desperate negotiations for a $4.2 billion contract with his company. They thought they had cast out an unworthy passenger. In truth, they had humiliated the only man capable of saving them from bankruptcy. Standing outside the cabin door, Marcus slipped his phone back into his pocket, his eyes burning with fire. He was no longer the 16-year-old boy gripping his mother's hand in tears. He was the man who had turned contempt into an empire, turned pain into strength. And now, he would turn this moment of humiliation into a storm, powerful enough to erase an entire airline. The cabin door closed behind Marcus, but the aftershock did not end. Instead, it erupted, not inside the plane, but out there, where the world needed only a single tap of a screen. In the final seconds before the aircraft pulled away from the jet bridge, dozens of phones had captured everything. Clara slipping money into Lauren's hand, Stephen barking orders, Captain Donovan issuing threats, and above all, Marcus rising, back straight, head high, walking between two officers like a man who had never learned to bow. Within minutes, those clips flooded Twitter. The hashtag #Seat2A appeared. 10 minutes later, it shot to the top of national trends. An hour later, #flying. While black rolled like a snowball, gathering unstoppable momentum across the globe. In the VIP lounge, Marcus sat quietly. Before him, his phone lit up in an endless stream. Messages arrived by the second. Videos tagged with his name spread everywhere. This man had a valid ticket, yet he was forced to leave. This is blatant discrimination. We stand with you. You are not alone. #Seat2A is now the symbol of dignity denied. The words surged like waves, yet they did not drown Marcus. Instead, they fortified him with a deeper calm. He knew this was no longer a personal matter. It had become the flag that millions longed to raise. His phone vibrated. Emily Carter, COO of Reed Technologies, was on the line. Her voice came fast, urgent. Marcus, the video has gone global. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera are reaching out. The hashtag #Seat2A has passed 10 million mentions in 2 hours. PR is ready. The legal team is on standby. We just need your word. Marcus was silent for a beat. His father's image returned. Calloused hands, silent eyes. He drew a deep breath, then answered, slow but firm. Do it. Meanwhile, inside Skylux Airways headquarters, hell had broken loose. On the massive operations screen, tweets poured in like a meteor shower. A PR officer, drenched in sweat, voice shaking. The video has 20 million views. International outlets are running headlines. BBC just posted Skylux Airways accused of discrimination. The CFO slammed his palm on the table, face drained. Stock has dropped 6% in a single morning. If this continues, investors will flee. The PR director clutched his head. We have to issue a statement immediately. Talk about diversity, about retraining staff. A board member cut in, voice sharp as a blade. Useless. The footage is too clear. People saw the money, saw the discrimination, saw the captain threaten. There is no spinning this. The air thickened, as if the room itself had lost all oxygen. Then a new alert flashed across the screen. Passenger removed was Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies, the very partner we are negotiating a $4.2 billion contract with. The boardroom erupted. What? He was the one? My God, we've destroyed ourselves. The chairman shot to his feet, his face ashen, his voice heavy as a death sentence. This is no longer a crisis. This is annihilation. As Skylux faltered, the storm outside grew fiercer. On TikTok, thousands of videos replayed Clara's bribe, set to dramatic music. On Instagram, an image of Marcus standing tall between two officers became a viral meme. They thought they took seat 2A. They didn't know they gave him the seat of judgment for the world. Human rights organizations and advocacy groups amplified the message. If even a billionaire is treated as undeserving, what chance does an ordinary passenger have? Each post, each share, was a knife carving deeper into Skylux's flesh. Marcus remained in the lounge. Beyond the glass, planes lifted into the night sky, leaving streaks of light behind. But in his eyes, it was not a flight he saw. It was a fault, spreading fast, burning away the arrogance of a corporation. He held his phone, the glow of the screen reflecting on his steady face. There was no smug smile, no nod of triumph. Only eyes, dark and bright like embers, and a whisper meant for himself alone. The storm has risen. Now it's time to take the wheel. The emergency boardroom at Skylux was suffocating in silence. Red numbers bled across the stock ticker screens, falling like drops of blood. PR sat stunned. The CFO snarled. The board floundered like a flock with clipped wings. Then the fateful message appeared. Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Technologies, passenger removed from seat 2A. The room froze as if struck by lightning. 1 dead second. Then shouts erupted all at once. Impossible! That is the man we are begging to sign the $4.2 billion contract. My God, we just committed suicide. A young director whispered, face drained. This is not just a scandal. This is the end. Meanwhile, at Reed Technologies headquarters, the atmosphere could not be more different. The minimalist conference room glowed only with the light of laptops and a towering screen. Around the table sat lawyers, PR strategists, senior advisors, all silent, their eyes locked on Marcus at the head of the table, his presence like a statue cast in iron. Emily Carter set a thick folder down, her voice sharp with urgency. Marcus, we can issue a statement at any moment. The public is waiting for you to speak. We need to strike while they are still reeling. Marcus did not answer. His gaze was fixed on the giant screen, where millions of shares poured in under the hashtag #SeatUA. In his mind, the image of his father returned. Calloused hands, unwavering eyes. The vow at his father's grave echoed, "I will make the world see us as human first." He drew in a deep breath. His eyes ignited. His voice rang like a command. "Start recording." 10 minutes later, the video went live across every platform. No background music, no stage lights. Only Marcus, seated against a plain white backdrop, his eyes locked on the lens. His voice was low, steady, each word cutting, clear. "I bought a valid ticket, seat 2A, with a platinum membership. I followed every rule. Yet I was pulled from my seat because they decided I did not belong." The recording room fell still. Marcus paused, each breath deliberate. "Let me be clear. Dignity is not for sale. Not mine. Not anyone's." His eyes flashed like a blade. His tone hardened. "Reed Technologies is officially ending negotiations with Skylux Airways. The $4.2 billion contract is off the table. And today, we are filing a lawsuit against Skylux for discrimination." He leaned forward slightly, gaze piercing through the camera, striking into the hearts of millions watching. "This is not just my story. This is the story of everyone who has ever been told they were not good enough, that they did not belong. I will not let silence protect injustice for one more second." The video ended. In 15 minutes, it had over 1 million views. Global media exploded. The Financial Times blared, "A $4.2 billion shock. Marcus Reed ends Skylux deal." CNN replayed the clip of him declaring, "Dignity is not for sale." At Skylux, the board sat paralyzed. One member whispered, lips dry, "He just pronounced our death sentence." The in-house lawyer stammered, "We must beg for renegotiation. Promise reform. Promise compensation." The Skylux CEO cut him off, voice hoarse. "Pointless. He has decided. And now, the entire world stands with him." Online, the storm had become a movement. Posters appeared with Marcus's image and the words, "I will not move." Activists called for a boycott of Skylux. Partner brands announced they were reviewing relationships. To the public, Marcus was no longer just a CEO. He had become a living symbol of unyielding defiance against injustice. In his office, Marcus stood by the window, the city lights glowing beneath him. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He only spoke softly, his words like prophecy. "They thought they took away seat 2A. In truth, I just took away their future." Skylux headquarters, 27th floor. The executive boardroom was thick with silence, heavy enough to cut with a knife. The massive projection screen replayed the now infamous video. Clara slipping money into Lauren's hand, Lauren pocketing it, Stephen barking threats, Donovan's cold voice declaring, "This is your final warning." Each frame played in slow motion like a blade. Each word echoed like a sentence that could not be denied. 3 figures sat across from the board. Lauren Hayes, hands twisting in her lap. Stephen Clark, head bowed with bloodshot eyes, and Captain Richard Donovan, his aging face taut, veins pulsing at his temple. The chairman signaled, "Play it again." Clara's whisper crackled from the speakers. "Thank you for handling it properly." The screen showed Lauren slipping the money into her pocket. Lauren broke down, sobbing. I didn't mean to. I just didn't want to upset her. She has flown Skylux for decades, I was afraid. The HR director slammed the table, cutting her off. "Afraid? You accepted a bribe on camera. The world has seen it all. You did not just disgrace Skylux, you burned our dignity to the ground." Lauren collapsed, tears streaming, but no one in the room was moved. The verdict came cold and sharp. "Effective immediately, your contract is terminated. You are dismissed." The video rolled on to the scene of Stephen snarling at Marcus. "This is your last chance." Stephen lifted his head, straining for some shred of authority. "I was only following procedure. I had to keep the flight on schedule." A female director slammed her palm down, her voice snapping like a whip. "What procedure allows you to call a legitimate customer unworthy? The ticket said seat 2A, yet you sided with a wealthy regular. You did not keep the flight on schedule, Stephen. You lit the fuse that destroyed us." Stephen's words died in his throat. The burning eyes of the board scorched him. At last, the chairman nodded, his tone final. "You are suspended immediately and will be formally terminated within 24 hours. The screen froze on Donovan's hard expression. "If you don't leave, I will call security." Donovan lifted his chin, voice rough. "I had to protect the discipline of the crew. If I sided with the passenger, I would lose the unity of my team." A cold voice cut through from the corner, the CFO. "And that unity cost us $4.2 billion. You did not protect the crew, Donovan. You flew the entire company into the ground." No words could save him now. A board member spoke the final blow. "Captain Richard Donovan, your career has to your ends today. There is no place left for you in aviation." Donovan sat motionless, his 40 years in the sky turning to ash. But the hammer had not finished falling. On another screen, Clara Whitmore's face filled every news channel. "Businesswoman Clara Whitmore caught bribing flight attendant on Skylux flight." "Cosmetics brand cancels partnership with Clara Whitmore." "Boycott campaign against Clara explodes on social media." Clara, who once raised her champagne glass in seat 2A with a victorious smile, now appeared in countless memes mocking her, her face beside the words. "Privilege costs billions." In the boardroom, a director laughed bitterly. She did not work for Skylux, but she dragged the whole airline into hell. No one disagreed. They all knew the truth. Clara was the spark, but Skylux poured on the fuel. The press release went out that night. "Skylux Airways announces termination of flight attendant Lauren Hayes, cabin supervisor Stephen Clark, and Captain Richard Donovan. The company commits to comprehensive reform." But outside, there was no applause. The public saw not contrition, but fear in the face of outrage. Headlines roared, "Skylux reforms not from conscience, but from panic." Trust had evaporated. In the high-rise office of Reed Technologies, Marcus watched the news. He did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply nodded, his voice low, resonant like a tolling bell. "This is not the end. This is only the beginning." The city lights lit his face, revealing eyes burning with fire. Clara might lose her brand. Skylux might lose its stock. But Marcus wanted something greater, a public verdict, one that would strip injustice of its velvet curtain in first class forever. Outside, Skylux was gasping for air. Its stock was in free fall, partners were cutting ties, and Clara Whitmore's name had become the symbol of privilege laid bare. But while the world's eyes fixated on collapse, Marcus chose another path. One morning, he stepped onto a podium in an international hall. No dazzling lights, no dramatic music, only a simple microphone and the eyes of hundreds of journalists, students and activists, all fixed on him. Marcus placed both hands on the wooden podium, his voice low, each word falling like the toll of a bell. They thought they stripped me of my dignity when they forced me from seat 2A. But dignity is never something that can be taken away. The hall went silent. Everyone had heard those words in the viral video, but spoken live, with his deep voice and burning gaze, they became a declaration. He paused, then continued. The compensation Skylux must pay, I will not use to enrich myself. I will use it to build a legacy. Behind him, the screen lit up. A logo appeared, silver wings lifting an empty seat. Beneath it, the words, Reed Aviation Equity Fund. Marcus's voice spread like fire through the rows. This fund will provide scholarships for young people from minority communities, giving them the chance to become pilots, aerospace engineers, air traffic controllers, flight attendants, so that the next generation is never told, you do not belong here. The sky must open to everyone, not just the few. The hall erupted. Applause thundered, rolling like storm clouds across the space. Many stood to their feet. Some journalists put down their pens, forgetting to write, simply to clap. In the front row, young students with tear-filled eyes whispered, "We will have a chance, because of him." The news spread like a tidal wave. CNN blared, Marcus Reed turns humiliation into opportunity for the next generation. BBC declared, from a stolen seat to thousands of new seats for minorities. The New York Times, a fund built on justice. On social media, a new hashtag soared. #WingsOffDignity. Videos of gratitude spread everywhere. A young boy in a paper pilot uniform, saluting, "I want to fly planes. Thank you, Mr. Reed." A group of students of color gathered at an airport, holding a banner. "We belong in the skies." Marcus's image was no longer tied to a seat dispute, but to a movement, one that opened the skies to all. In Reed Technologies' office, Emily Carter laid a thick report on the table. In just 48 hours, the fund has received millions in voluntary donations. Universities and international airlines are reaching out to partner. Marcus, you haven't just founded a fund. You've started a movement. Marcus stood by the window, morning sunlight pouring in. He did not smile, nor bask in pride. He simply nodded, his voice low and reverent, like a prayer. "Father, I kept my promise." In his eyes, his father's figure appeared again, calloused hands, a gentle smile behind the smoke of steel. From the ashes of injustice, Marcus had ignited a flame of hope for a generation. That evening in Geneva, lights blazed in the hall of the Global Conference on Ethics and Technology. Over 3,000 people from across the world, politicians, tech leaders, young students, waited for Marcus Reed, The MC's voice rang out. "Please welcome Mr. Marcus Reed." Applause exploded, crashing against the ceiling. Hundreds of cameras followed his every step. But Marcus did not walk like a triumphant king. He walked slowly, straight, backed with calm eyes. At the microphone, he stopped. No effects, no music. Only his voice, deep and steady. 3 days ago, I was forced from the seat I had purchased, seat 2A. I showed my ticket, my card, followed every rule. But they said I did not belong there. The truth is, no one has the right to decide your dignity. It cannot be bought. It cannot be sold. It cannot be taken. The hall froze, then erupted as the entire audience rose, clapping like thunder rolling across mountains. Many placed hands over their hearts, trying to steady the pounding. Marcus bowed his head slightly, a greeting to all who had once bowed theirs to injustice, telling them now they could rise. The Geneva Hall blazed with light, 3,000 people silent as stone. Every camera fixed on Marcus Reed, the man once dragged from a first-class seat, now standing on a podium of triumph before the world. He stood tall, his gaze sweeping across the chamber. No music, no spotlight, only his voice, deep and resonant, carving into the air. They could pull me from seat 2A, but no one, no power, can pull me from my dignity. A wave of silence spread outward, every heart gripped by the weight of his words. Marcus lowered his voice, speaking slowly, as if whispering into the shared memory of humanity. This story is not mine alone. It belongs to everyone who has ever been told they were not good enough. To the worker dismissed with contempt, to the child mocked for the color of their skin or the sound of their voice, to the employee overlooked simply because they did not belong. A young woman in the hall broke into tears. Many placed hands over their hearts, steadying the pounding within. Marcus stepped forward, light catching his eyes like burning embers. Power means nothing if it only shields the privileged. Influence is worthless if it only amplifies voices already too loud. But dignity is immutable. It cannot be bargained, it cannot be sold, and it cannot be taken. Applause erupted, scattered at first, then swelling into waves. But Marcus raised his hand for silence. He wanted his words to echo louder than any cheer. He continued, his voice sharp as a blade. I built Reed Technologies to erase bias in service, but no algorithm can erase prejudice if people refuse to face it. Technology is only a tool. True change must begin within us. His gaze swept the chamber. Each person felt as if he were looking directly into them, forcing them to confront themselves. Then his voice dropped lower, heavier. They thought they silenced me when they dragged me from seat 2A. But the truth is, they handed me this microphone. And today I do not speak for myself. I speak for everyone who has never been heard. He paused, drew a breath, then released the final words like thunder. They thought they took my dignity. But dignity was never theirs to take. The hall exploded. Applause thundered against the ceiling, rattling the floor. Many broke into tears. Hundreds of cameras swung wildly, capturing every face, every tear, every person rising to their feet like a wave sweeping across the sea of humanity. On social media, a new hashtag ignited within minutes. #dignity unbroken. It spread like a whirlpool that could not be extinguished. Marcus stood still. No proud smile, no raised fist of victory. He only bowed his head slightly, a small gesture, yet one that felt like a greeting to all who had once bowed under injustice, a promise that from this day they could stand tall. In this world, money can buy a first-class ticket. It can buy an airline. It can buy silence for a moment. But there is one thing it can never buy: human dignity. And the story of Marcus Reed had carved that truth into history. In this world, power can buy a first-class ticket. It can buy seat 2A. It can even buy the silence of an airline. But there is one thing it can never touch, and that is human dignity. The story of Marcus Reed is not just a confrontation on a plane. It is proof that even when humiliated, a person can turn pain into strength and transform contempt into a flame that lights the way for millions of others. Seat 2A was taken away. But from that seat, a movement took flight, opening the skies for future generations. And the message still echoes: dignity cannot be stolen because it has always belonged to us. If you believe that respect must be the starting point for every flight and every encounter, hit like to spread this message. Do not forget to subscribe to join us in the stories of justice and resilience to come. And leave a comment with just 2 words: dignity unbroken, so the world can see that human dignity never breaks.